What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and much like we discussed with Aaron Glenn, trying to facilitate this new culture, he may dip into the Detroit Lions roster, right? And I think new general manager Darren Mougey will look to do the same based on his connection. So I want to break down 3 free agents that were either recently with the Broncos or has a connection to Darren Mougey's time with the Broncos that could be a fit for this roster, right? I think a lot of people continue to hype up, as we should, the Garrett Wilsons and the Will McDonalds and Breece Hall, Sauce Gardners of our roster, but there's still significant upgrades or consistency that can be sought after when you look at some of these key depth positions or even in some case starters, right? And I look at tight end specifically as one where, much like the safety room, I think you could end up seeing a complete overhaul there, right? Conklin and Rucker has been the 1-2 combo there for a while, and it's been pretty underwhelming in Jeremy Rucker's case for the most part, even though I think he's flashed a few moments that show the athleticism that we, highly sought after at the position. And then with Tyler Conklin, I think he has overperformed considering the level of play with the quarterback position, but he just never feels like he's going to truly move the needle for the team. You also look at the need to partner Quinnen Williams with somebody, although it feels like we could end up going the 1-year rental route here, pending whatever happens in the draft, right? And I think the unequivocal hope is that you see a guy like Mason Graham end up being an option for the New York Jets at pick number 7, and then even linebacker. Again, a position that could be under total roster construction. Jamin Sherwood being a free agent. C.J. Mosley's a yearly conversation with the contract that he's had and us trying to push money down the road. So, nonetheless, the first agent, tight end Nick Vannett. Now, he's not actually with the Broncos at this time, but he's played with a number of teams. The connection here is from when he was with the Broncos under Darren Mougey's purview. So coming in at 6'5" and 257 pounds, he's still producing, right? You're talking about being over age 30. So this is a guy that I would look at as a potential tight end too, a plus blocker, still offers you some receiving ability. He just had 3 touchdowns with the Tennessee Titans. He's coming off a 17 catch season, which isn't spectacular in any means, right? But it is his most since 2019. So he's still showing that he has some ability to go out there and produce, but you want him in a limited role. You want him to be able to impact the run game. So this is just a solid foundational piece, right? This is one of those brick and mortar players, if you want to call it, that kind of ends up being the glue of a lot of the more elite teams that tend to perform well. But he's been in a ton of systems. He's been around a ton of teams. So from an experience standpoint, from this late in the game of his career, being a blocker that can go out there and offer you some clutched catches here and there, still be a red zone threat for you, it's a plus. Titans, Broncos, Seahawks, Steelers, Saints, Giants, Texans, Chargers, many teams that have, generally speaking, done pretty well at the tight end position. But I definitely look at teams like the Saints. I look at the Seahawks. I look at the Broncos, for example, as some of those primary teams that have always kind of had an emphasis and somewhat of not only star players, but really good key role players at that position as well. So we'll see what the appetite at that position looks like to invest resources, right? I think we all know how important the tight end position is, but we'll have to see what we want to do schematically and how much influence Darren Mougey versus Aaron Glenn has versus, the offensive coordinator. What is really the perspective on that position? If we end up looking to, bring in 1 or 2 guys and potentially a draft pick, I think you'll see how critical they consider it to be. Linebacker is another conversation, right? Cody Barton is the name to know here. Middle linebacker coming in at 6'2", 237 pounds. He's been with the Seahawks. He's been with the Commanders. He's been with the Broncos. And in a season where he replaced Alex Singleton for the Broncos,
he did decently well, right? You are talking about starter level snaps. But overall, I think a lot of Broncos fans would say that it would be nice to have him as kind of that break the glass emergency player that can come in and just do a little bit more than spot duty, but he's never going to necessarily wow you. I would say he's generally reliable in terms of his tackling ability. He's not necessarily a huge liability in coverage. But he's not going to be one of the guys that you go and say is solid, or you look at and say he could delete an opponent, right? 106 tackles last year, 1.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble, and a forced recovery. So he does have that element of play where he can have his moments in all facets, right? Takeaways, being able to be stout against the run, obviously coverage as we talked about, and then of course open field tackling, different things like that. But he'll get caught out of run gaps, he'll be caught out of alignment in certain cases. So he's not elite, and I think for a Broncos franchise that hasn't had top tier middle linebacker play in quite some time, you're gonna have the hardcore fans that probably don't want him, but the realistic fans that see him as an MLB the third inside linebacker that could potentially come in and not have a huge fall off is key, right? You need that in today's NFL. And for what it's worth, he is coming off his 3rd straight season of at least 100 tackles, while also, as we saw, filling in for being able to impact some takeaways for the defense. Finally, and this is probably the most intriguing and important player here, is defensive tackle DJ Jones. We really need somebody next to Quinnen. I got a feeling he'll never really see that long-term partner unless we have somebody that kind of develops out the blue, like your Leonard Taylor, for example, or we do find some way to get a Mason Graham. But it's been veteran rental after veteran rental, and we've had various levels of elite success or underwhelming performances, like we saw from Kinlaw versus having Jefferson, right? So with DJ Jones, it feels like you can get back to that level. 6'5", 305 pounds. He's a very underrated run-stuffing DT that has generally always been able to offer you a little bit of pass rush pop as well. Coming off this 2024 season, I think it's the first time that he hasn't had a 2-sack season since like 2018 or something along those lines. So nothing significant, but having a guy that can be a monster in a run game and still offer you the ability to get after the quarterback and collapse pockets and stuff is huge. Although for what it's worth, I will say asterisk on this, whole conversation here. I miss the days of having, just a two-man gap eater like a Damian Harrison Snacks. That was always one of my favorite undrafted free agents. And he wasn't credited enough for the job, the grit and grind that he really performed on the defensive line for the Jets back in the day. But jumping back on topic, he's a significant piece of the Broncos' top 10 rushing defense from last year. 42 tackles, a sack, a fumble recovery, and he actually got his hand on 3 tip passes as well. He signed a 3-year, $30 million contract back in 2022, and I would say if you look at the total body of work since joining the Broncos, it's been generally well earned. He did have a bit of a dip back in 2023, but between his first year in 2022 and then kind of this bounce back season in 2024, I think Bronco fans feel really good and would look to make him a priority free agent re-signing. There's also a bit of a potential fight if he makes it to free agency, right, where Robert Saleh, this is one of the guys that kind of fits his mold when you look at the interior defensive tackle spot for him. So also has spent time with the 49ers as the only other team he's played for in the NFL under Robert Saleh. And so he could be priority number 1 for that team if he makes free agency. But he's just quietly, I think, excellent at the job that he's asked to do. Ranked second in run stop win rate among all defensive tackles in 2024. The New York Jets could definitely use this guy, especially considering Steve Wilkes hasn't had the best run defenses over the course of his career, and we know that that's been a problem overall for the Jets. So this could be your poor man's DJ Reed, maybe to a degree. Obviously, much different build, but in terms of his run stopping presence, I think that'd be key. So let me know what you guys think about these three. Would you look to actually bring all of them in? Do you have preference? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.